Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is still your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Reach out to me for pricing. I am T Mosso at thewatchbox.com. Today, I am proud to introduce one of my favorite watches in the world and one of my favorite to present, the Patek Philippe 5236P-001 inline perpetual calendar. Based on historic references like the 725, the 843, the 844, and the 699, the perpetual calendar with day, date, and month inline is a Patek Philippe tradition, though this includes 3 new patents to make it viable in a wristwatch format. The Platinum watch was launched in 2021 and it won my heart immediately. This is on the short list of grails I would buy if I suddenly won the lotto. 41.3 millimeters in diameter, it's a reasonable 11.3 millimeters thick, and from lug tip to lug tip, 48.5 millimeters with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. It's a weighty watch. As you can see, it's also a sizable watch. My wrist is 16 centimeters circumference, and this strap is stiff and hasn't been broken in, so I'm pulling it fairly tight. I'm probably exaggerating the narrowness of my wrist just by pulling it in and constraining it so much. Though if you look down the barrel, you can see I've actually got a fair amount of clearance on each side. So I could recommend this watch for a wrist my size or larger, so 16 centimeters circumference and up, maybe even 15 if your wrist is more flat than round. It is a thin watch with a thickness of just over 11 millimeters and a sloped bezel. It should slide easily underneath a dress cuff, and boy does it look good. It also feels weighty, a quality I love about Platinum watches. Now the strap is large scale alligator leather, but not necessarily rectangular. It's a somewhat different cut, and it actually segues down to medium scale by the end. So sometimes Patek chooses a cut based on sort of a dynamic transition of shapes and sizes, and we've definitely got that here. Now, it's definitely a dark blue gloss finish, folded edge, monotone stitch, calfskin on the bottom, and so this is a brand new Patek strap. You can see no crimping, no gouging. It uses Patek's pull tab spring bars, so you stick your fingernail there and you just pop it right off just like that, and then you transfer the spring bar to your new strap because it pulls right out. That's what this cut out to the edge is for. We have a folding clasp, single fold, also in platinum, Calatrava across. It's the logo of the company. It's on the buckle, it's on the rotor, and it's on the crown. Now the buckle is platinum, ultra white, just like the rest of the watch. The idea behind a folding clasp is that it prevents you from dropping the watch by forming a loop with the other side of the strap. The idea is that it's harder to accidentally drop off your wrist when you're putting it on or taking it off. Then we have this little rosette style spring that helps it to snap shut. It's friction fit, but it's one of the more secure friction fit systems. The case, do you recognize it? You should if you're a Patek fan. This is the old 3448 case, also used on the 3450 perpetual calendars. A very sheer case that's cylindrical in profile with sharp angular lugs that jut out dramatically from the case band, paired with a conical bezel. Here, everything's in high polish. You can see that the bezel is actually stepped in just a little bit from the case band to add some visual distinction and reduce the sheer. And then the case back is also stepped in somewhat to create the appearance of a thinner watch when it's actually on the wrist. Between the lugs at 6 o'clock, a top Vesselton diamond. The diamond between the lugs at 6, a modern day, really 21st century era signature of a platinum Patek Philippe. You'll also note that there's a little bit of a box section to this crystal. The dial is a standout. Of course, you have the cycloptic calendar system, sometimes known as the American calendar, because of the day, date, and the month. It's also got a vertical grain, brushed like stainless steel, and then a gradient. So lighter at the center, almost sort of a ultramarine at the center, and then very dark indeed at the edge. Though you can see the track outboard for the minutes has a different texture to it, which creates a different shade. The hands, as well as all the indices, are white gold. The hands at center are faceted. The indices are also faceted. This makes for better contrast against a fairly dark dial base. And although a lot of people compare this to the 5235, there's a big difference. This has center hands. This is a lot easier to read than a 5235. As much as I loved the regulator, it was a tough thing to read at a glance. That is not the case here. Also, perpetual calendar. The 5235 was an annual. This can deal with irregular length months. It can deal with leap years. It does not need to be reset until the year 2100. Now down at the base we have a crescent style moon phase and then sub-seconds with radially arrayed Arabic numerals and indices. And you can see that we have a counterweighted white Lancet style gold seconds hand, and then a concentric pattern within the register. Adjacent to it, over at 8 o'clock, we've got this little day-night indicator. I'll show you how that works. That lets you know when it is nighttime, so you know when not to use the pushers on the case flank to set the calendar. Because during the night, if you try to use the pusher adjusters to set the calendar, see how now it's turning blue? Now we're looking at 9 p.m. right there. When that thing is blue, you don't use the pusher adjuster tool that comes with the watch to set the calendar using these little dimples. You want to make sure you advance through midnight to about 6:30 a.m., then make the corrections. Then over here, you have the leap year phase. So 4 is the leap year. It's always the Summer Olympics, and you get a red 4, and that's how you know it's the leap year. And then there are actually 2 coplanar sets of discs up at the top. So you have 4 discs that are coplanar, and you have 2 sets on a common axis. Google a picture of this movement by itself, you'll see what I mean. But 3 patents were lodged, although it still does use the traditional program wheel and grand lever, so it is a very traditional perpetual calendar in terms of how it actually works beneath the hood. The movement, however, is not traditional. Don't mistake this for the 240 micro rotor. This is actually an all-new construction that debuted in 2011 on the 5235. And let's just start with what makes this different from the 5235's version of the 31260. Big changes here. There's a lot more torque in the mainspring. It's a larger mainspring with more energy that also exerts more torque, and I believe somewhere around 20% more energy total in the mainspring barrel to turn a perpetual calendar with a multi-disc display rather than an annual. There's also here a platinum rotor, so it is gold on the regulator. Here it's platinum, so it's denser, it winds more efficiently. That said, it's still the same basic architecture. So we have rotor winding, a 48-hour power reserve, accuracy rated no worse than -3 + 2 seconds per 24 hours from the factory, 6-position adjustment. We also have a Gyromax style free sprung balance, which allows for both precise adjustment and greater durability against shock. Spiromax anti-magnetic silicone hairspring. All of this pivoting on 55 joules, and it has 503 parts. So this is a deeply complex movement. For efficiency, the rotor, as well as the first reduction wheel, spin on ceramic bearings. And then the whole thing is immense. If you include the module, the width of this movement is 34 millimeters, whereas the 240 is closer to 27. So this is a modern movement designed to fit a display case back, and I can't really do it with my gloved hand here, but this watch does feature hacking or stop seconds, something that no caliber 240 includes. You can also see that it includes a type of finishing that appears to be more popular on the modern Patek micro rotors based on this architecture, which is a really broad set of stripes across the bridges. You can see just how broad they are and how the shading gradient is very different from the narrow stripes of precedent. We do have beveled edges that are mirrored. We have engine turning on the base plate. We have screw heads that are polished with their slots and their circumference beveled or chamfered. We have satination on the wheels, and you can also see on the ratchet wheel itself, we do have a few places where bevels come to a point. One of them is here, another of them at the edges of these 2 peripheral bridges. My one regret is that we don't actually have any interior beveling here where bevels come to a sharp inward crease, but we do have beveling of all of the jewel sinks, which shows excellent attention to detail. And if you look, there's actually several different sizes of engine-turned perlage on the lower plates, which also shows good attention to detail. And all this, in theory, is 30 meters water-resistant, but I really don't recommend you try that. One other element that I like about this movement that I should call out is the use of architecture. Now, finish is decoration, and that's all well and good, but architecture is the shape, the size, and the relative positioning of the pieces in relation to each other. And you've got this lovely set of finger bridges running down from the great wheel to the escapement. And then you've got this large crescent hollow that encircles the micro rotor, and big bridges that extend less and less as they neck down and shrink towards the escapement. I really like that. You can also see that unlike the somewhat problematic version of this movement in the 5235, here we have a conventional escapement with lever and wheel made of steel, and then actual pallet stones. So there have been some changes. You might wonder, is there a solid case back? Yes, there is. This watch comes with its full boxed set in addition to the solid optional platinum case back. Some people prefer that. Patek gives you the choice. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.